Hey guys, Joel's coming at you with another reasoning session where I challenge the status quo of the wisdom of the world and the church by diving deep into the ancient scriptures and applying them practically to situations in our present day. And today I'm going to be elaborating more on the fall of Babylon.
Come now and let us reason together. Come now, we can talk it over.
And we're seeing that fall of Babylon play out right before our very eyes in society. No matter how tough they may look and how loud they're shouting, this whole system is coming crashing down, and these are the dying gasps of the beast, just trying to maintain control over society. But before I jump into that, I just gotta say that if you like these videos, give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe if you haven't already, because these messages are constantly coming out. I'm constantly getting new downloads and new insights because the time is at hand. And that ties right back into the section of scripture that I'm going to be diving deep into today, coming from the oracles of Isha. And we're talking about closing that gap between the seed time and harvest of the things that the empire has actually sown. And in scripture, that's embodied in the identity of Yahweh, which literally means that which exists in eternity, which always has been, which always will be. In other words, the closing of the contrast of justice within the time lag of this time-space physical dimension. And he says, "Howl ye, for the day of Yahweh is at hand. It shall come as a destruction from the Almighty. Therefore shall all hands be faint, and every man's heart shall melt, and they shall be afraid. Pangs and sorrow shall take hold of them. They shall be in pain as a woman that travails. They shall be amazed one at another. Their faces shall be as flames, because they know that the seeds they put out are due for a harvest to return upon their own heads. Behold, the day of Yahweh comes, cruel, both with wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate, and he shall destroy the sinners thereof out of it." So this wrath is coming upon sinners. It's not talking about people that are righteous. It's not talking about people that do good and are tapped in with the living logos, because the blood of Christ saves us from that wrath. We are justified through him. But this whole passage is talking about the empire of Babylon. Look at what he says a bit further on. "Every one that is found shall be thrust through, and every one that is joined unto them shall fall by the sword. Their children also shall be dashed to pieces before their eyes. Their houses shall be spoiled, and their wives ravished." Which can be literal, but it also means that all the wealth and all the security that they've laid up for themselves is going to be wiped out before their eyes. They're not going to get away with it committing suicide in their bunkers this time. And he goes on to say, "Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency, shall be as when God, Elohim, overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. It shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. Neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there, neither shall the shepherds make their fold there." Meaning that empire is going to fall, and their dynasty is not going to carry on to anyone else. It's literally going to be decimated. "Wild beasts of the desert shall lie there, and their houses shall be full of doleful creatures, and owls shall dwell there, and satyrs shall dance there." And of course, the owl is a symbol of the Illuminati with Bohemian Grove and all that kind of stuff. And satyrs, well, that's Pan, the goat man, Baphomet. And it's talking about these are the inhabitants of their empire, but no man is going to dwell there ever again. It's just going to be left to these beings in the spiritual causal realms, but without a man to carry out their bidding, it's just going to be unfruitful and barren. "And the wild beasts of the islands shall cry in their desolate houses, and dragons," the Hebrew word there is ta'anim, and that also can be interpreted as jackal. And the guy that's currently sitting in the seat of the presidency, or at least claiming to, has been defined by many as a jackal. "Jackals in their pleasant palaces," White House, "and her time is near to come, and her days shall not be prolonged." And then he goes on to say that it shall come to pass in the day that Yahweh shall give you rest from your sorrow, and from your fear, and from the hard bondage wherein you were made to serve. Check that out. 3 things that we're going to have respite from sorrow, from fear, and from hard bondage or restraint. Guess what? That sums up pretty much what they've been trying to push down our throats the last couple years. "That you shall take up this proverb against the king of Babylon and say, How has the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased. And what city is sitting on more gold than any others? Well, that's the city on 7 hills. Yahweh has broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers. He who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke, he that rules the nations in anger, is persecuted, and none hinders. So this table is going to turn, and there's not going to be anybody to hold it back. The whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing, because once this table turns, man, there's going to be singing and dancing in the streets. Yea, the fir trees rejoice at you, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since you are laid down, no feller is come up against us. Hell from beneath is moved for you, to meet you at your coming. It stirs up the dead for you, even all the chief ones of the earth. It has raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations. All they that shall speak and say unto you, are you also become weak as we? Are you become like unto us? Your pomp is brought down to the grave, and the noise of your viols, the worm is spread under you, and the worms cover you. And then in the authorized version, it actually calls him out by the name Lucifer. How are you fallen from heaven, Lucifer, son of the morning? Are you cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For you have said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of Elohim. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. And we're seeing like those in government, they don't want anything spiritual to challenge their authority. Yet you shall be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. They that see you shall narrowly look upon you and consider you, saying, is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake the kingdoms? And then going on a bit further, he says, for I will raise up against them, says Yahweh of hosts. We're talking the angelic armies here. And cut off from Babylon the name, and remnant, and son, and nephew, says Yahweh. I will also make it a possession for the bittern and pools of water, and I will sweep it with the besom of destruction, says Yahweh of hosts. Yahweh of hosts has sworn, saying, surely as I have thought, so shall it come to pass, and as I have purposed, so shall it stand. And speaking of that gold, once this is all resolved, going back a bit, he actually says, I will make a man more precious than fine gold, even a man than the golden wedge of Ophir, which actually is talking about the fact that these guys that are sitting in their palaces actually commodify humanity in terms of wealth, in terms of gold, and actually the value of human souls is actually transubstantiated into physical gold. And that's why they're sitting on so much gold in that good old city-state that's in Rome. So don't think just because this thing has taken so long to unfold that, you know what, maybe we're on the wrong page. Even I sometimes question, I hear things and people are struggling out there. There's a lot of pressure coming from media and, even loved ones, formerly loved ones in some cases, because honestly, it's just like pitting brother against brother and lover against lover. There's just so much pain and heartache with all the pressure that's out there that, people are under stress and people are really about to snap. But don't let it get to you, because honestly, this is splitting right down the middle and there is no middle ground. You're either for the propaganda or you've woken up and you just can't take it. This is literally an IQ test from source above, and the promise is there. If our foundation, if our gnosis, if our absolute conviction lies in that unseen realm and the word that's spoken, the living logos, then guess what? We're going to transcend. We're going to have that power within us to keep moving forward, moving through all the propaganda, and actually see the page turn. Because when the page turns, all of this stuff isn't going to exist, and we're actually going to be propelled into a new system, a new paradigm, into literally a new world, because there's no going back to the old world. This is literally changing everything that we've known before this, and it's literally ushering in Earth 2.0. So do your part and actually be part of this leading edge. We can literally manifest the world that we've known we've come here to live in, not to be oppressed and manipulated, but to literally have every dream that's been planted in our hearts by Source Creator and see that to fruition, being the beacons of light and the agents in place for the kingdom of heaven in this new era. So I love you guys. I'll check you in another reasoning sesh. Joel signing out once again. Agape. Salaam. Namaste. Shalom. And we're talking about closing that cycle of divine. And we're talking about closing the gap between just. And we're talking about closing that gap. And we're talking about closing that gap between. And we're talking about closing that gap between the seed time and harvest of the things that the evil. Of the things that the empire has actually sown.